Jake Paul going against Tyron Woodley, though, here in a few weeks. What do you think of that one?
Yeah.
I mean, Woodley's been kind of, he was struggling in the UFC down the stretch there. So a boxing match, that's certainly a change of pace for him.
Yeah, no, that one's going to be interesting. So I knew that Ben Askren would suck in that fight because Ben Askren is the worst striker in history. Like,
he looked like he just showed up that day. He didn't, not even in shape, no muscle definition. He looked worse than me without his shirt on.
No, it was awful. And his striking style is pure garbage. Like, I was talking to one of my friends, Andrew, about this, and Andrew was like, who do you got winning? And I was like, I think I've got Paul. And he's like, why? He's like, Ben Askren was, a D1 champion, wrestled in the Olympics, all this stuff. And I was like, have you seen Ben Askren's boxing? Like, it is garbage. It is trash. And the only reason why he was even a good MMA fighter is because they have submissions. Like, he was getting wrecked by Robbie Lawler until he fell into that bulldog choke. And no, Robbie Lawler, I don't think, was getting out of that bulldog choke at any point anyways. But like, if it wasn't for grappling, there's no way Askren could ever transition into combat sports. Why I bring that up, though, is I don't think Woodley is like that. So Askren, the way that he got to be a D1 champion and even Olympian is because he does really funky, weird things that at that time nobody else was doing. And so nobody really knew how to compete with the funk of Askren at, the D1 and Olympic levels. But now we have such good athletes that are competing in the Olympics for wrestling, such good athletes that are, competing in D1, NCAA wrestling championships, that I personally don't know if Askren would be a champion today. And in fact, I don't think that he would. Whereas Woodley is a good athlete. Like, the reason he was good at wrestling is because he's a freak of nature athlete. The reason why he was, a champion in the UFC is because he was a freak of nature athlete, and you combine that with, his ability to strike and things like that. And so I would give the edge to Woodley. I think he's got more power. I think he is a better athlete. He's, had more actual fighting experience, because Paul really has only ever fought basically bums off the street.
Nate Robinson and, of course, Ben Askren.
Like, and that's it. And we know, like I said, Askren doesn't have any striking skill, and Nate Robinson was just a good basketball player.
Yeah, if it was a slam dunk contest, Jake Paul would be in trouble there. But what is it? You can't fake boxing. You can't play boxing. That's not how that works. Listen, I'll say this for the Paul brothers. I do think that they are real boxers. And what I mean in that, not saying that they're the elite boxers. Not saying they're Floyd Mayweather, even though I guess technically that fight happened, or Muhammad Ali, but they are in fact real boxers. Like, their technique, the guy does have a good finishing blow. His knockout punch is legit. So heck, if he catches Woodley with one of those, it could be lights out. These guys are athletes as well, in a certain amount of respect. There may be some questions of juicy juice going on there, but still, they are athletes. Woodley, though, you mentioned, he's a fighter, he's a striker, he's a way better athlete than Ben Askren could ever dream to be. Given those factors, he should be able to beat Jake Paul in this fight. However, anything can happen. And, he just got to guard his chin, because it just takes one of those blows. It really does. With how much power Jake Paul is actually able to generate, it could just take one. So I'm sure Woodley's going to take the fight seriously. That's going to be his biggest advantage in this one. I don't think Askren ever took it seriously. Again, he literally looked like he just showed up. You would expect some sort of training program. Nothing.
Yeah. And the other thing that I will say that, you sort of mentioned, where I might give Jake Paul a little bit of an edge, is that striking in boxing truly is different from MMA, because MMA, you're so worried about kicks and knees and elbows and punches and everything flying from everywhere, takedowns, that you are a little bit more hesitant. And if you've ever watched a Woodley fight, like, Dana White bashed Woodley all the time because he's like, Woodley fights so slow and methodical, and he's picking his opportunity and picking his chance to strike, and guys wouldn't want to close that distance. They wouldn't want to close that gap, because they knew that, okay, one punch from Woodley could put me out, or there's takedowns coming, all that. So a lot of Woodley's MMA fights were super slow, really measured, waiting for the right opportunity. Boxing matches aren't really like that, because they rely just more on head movement. That they're going to be striking, you've really only got two ways that it's coming. You know, it's either coming from the left or coming from the right. And granted, there's different angles, uppercuts, you know, hooks, things like that to the body, to the head. But there's really only, like I said, two ways that it's coming. It's either going to be left or it's going to be right. And so with boxing matches, I think Jake Paul has gotten used to the pace of boxing. And I don't know if Woodley has when it comes to being a striker. Like I said, Woodley, for a lot of times, he's been able to slow down the pace in striking in MMA. Can you do that in a boxing match? I don't know. And that is the one area where I will say that maybe Paul has some favorability right there.
I mean, he did look pretty bad in his last few fights. I remember watching some of his most recents, and they were rough watches. You talk about that slow, methodical pace. He just never got it going in those fights at any point. It was just like, okay, dude, the fight started like a couple rounds ago. Let's get into this. And you kind of understand Dana White's frustrations a little bit